You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. This is Season 9, Episode 334, CreepGeeks Podcast.
Lake Shawnee Abandoned Amusement Park, Ghost Hunting Gear to Avoid, Banana Phantom, and Aportation.
Yeah. So it begins again. Welcome back to CreepGeeks Podcast. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And we have a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. Okay, so we've been gone for a minute because we had a little bit of an adventure to attend to and some other stuff. So things just sort of happened. And we know you don't really care about that kind of thing. So we just thought we'd go ahead and put a little episode out because Omi's leaving me.
What?
She's decided she's out.
She's a conference.
So, you know.
For 2.5 days. You have...
It's all, what am I going to do?
You're going to use Walmart Plus, and you're going to watch all your favorite Doctor Who.
I don't have any more favorite Doctor Who.
Okay, you can play reruns.
No, I'm going to watch whatever man thinks about this my age, and it's not the Roman Empire, it's World War II.
Oh, God.
I have a whole bunch of movies set up. I don't know what streaming platform they're on, so I asked the whole thing. I save them going, yes, I'll get back to this.
You know it's AMC.
And I'm like, no, it's not. That's the thing. So I was like, oh, it must be Hulu. Nope. Is it Amazon Prime? Nope. Is it Paramount Plus on Amazon Prime? Nope. And I go through this little dance. You know. Mm-hmm. Is it on Roku? Like Space, was it Cowboy Ghost, UFO Cowboys or whatever it is, where they're like out there being like mountain monsters and stuff.
But out in the desert.
But they're cowboys. And they're like, did you see my horse run through here? It looked like it seen the devil. Yeah. And I gave it, you know, I did watch all the seasons. I think it was like 2. I watched it, and I'm like, man, this is real bad.
Yeah, I can't.
But it's free. Roku, free TV.
Fun thing, because...
Or Rock You, if you want to mispronounce it.
Because some of these shows, I'm just like, are you serious? Just go on IMDb and just look up the individual people and find out how many of them have, like, an acting background.
Why?
And then you're like... Okay, if you have an acting background, why is this so terrible?
Well, you know, sometimes, you know, maybe they're not paying for the good stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's like, oh, you know, like sometimes I watch these welding videos, right, where it shows like a really just terrible weld job that I'm like, that looks great. But the comments are like, that is terrible, right? And then you see one where it's really good.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, man, this guy submitted 2 welding jobs in an interview. And the top one is just slag and awful. And the one bottom is second. And he's like, well, why did you do this? He's like, you're paying. This is $10 an hour. And he showed a horrible crap on top. Mm-hmm. And this is $50. So which one do you want? Okay. Which, you know, kind of makes sense. You know, you're not going to get the best effort out of me if you're paying me $10 an hour. You're going to get your $10 an hour. And a lot of people seem like, you need to do your best all the time. And it's like, no. Things are different. You get what you pay for. And I think it's unrealistic. And I used to be the one that was like, do the best job you can every single time and do all that stuff. And at the end of the day, you're just burning yourself out for what? You know? Mm-hmm. And it's like, you got to make sure you give people 2 weeks notice when no, don't do that anymore either because they don't care. Yeah. You go into someplace now and say, hey, here's my 2 weeks. And they're like, oh, cool, thanks. Just you can go ahead and leave now. So don't tell them. Get that extra 2 weeks, take some vacation days, and then roll out. And people are like, oh, how could you do that? And it's like, because companies and corporations, they really just don't seem to have, they always talk family when they don't want to pay, but, you know, they just don't seem to be, the loyalty doesn't go both ways these days.
The workforce and the job market have completely skewed.
Yeah, well, it's all really sort of come to a head in 2020 when customer service died with COVID. Yeah. Like, they could just straight up tell you, you know, oh, well, you know, customer's not always right. And it's like, okay, well, then, you know, you don't deserve $15, $20 an hour for putting a hamburger in a bag. Yeah. Well, you know, paramedic gets paid $8 or $12.75 an hour, but you want to give a dude at McDonald's $18? No. Come on.
And it's not even just customer service, like help desk died.
It's all of it.
Customer service, product support. Yeah. Just basic interactions.
Yeah,
even sales.
Companies were like, now is our chance to rechange our company. We can take customer satisfaction and all this sort of customer-facing jobs away and save a bunch of money. And these companies and corporations made, tons and tons of money.
Yeah.
And you think, okay. And then we went into an inflationary period where prices were crazy high. For what? And then companies were like, oh, we're just going to drop the prices now. There was really no reason for it. It's like, okay. I see what you did. So
Johnsy and me, we had to, we've been rebuilding our visitor center, which is in Old Fort, North Carolina, because it was affected by Helene. And we were running errands for a couple months there, just going to different stores. And we have money. And we're dressed in our workwear, our office wear. We're looking to rebuild a whole visitor center. And we were going into like tech places for electronics and computer gear, high-end furniture stores, and the customer service was just,
yeah, you're not doing me a favor.
Shanti had like a $300 chair she was about to buy, and it took us forever to find somebody to help
You're not
us.
doing me a favor by me buying a product from you. You're not. And a lot of people think that way. And we've had this conversation where I've gone into places where customer service was just super crazy, treated bad, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And they know it, and they're being spiteful. And I've taken that receipt, because usually I just pay debit and roll out. And I'm like, you know what? You're going to pay. You're going to pay the merchant fees today. And they hand me that little receipt so I could sign it. And I sign it FU and give it right back to them. And they look all like, oh, yeah, put that in your drawer. And so when you're getting your cash till tallied out later on, and they're looking at it, like, what does this say? And this is FU. Because I'm not being treated like that. I fully get it now. I'm older. I will go to the more expensive place that treats me okay. Yeah. It could be that one nice lady who's just being nice to everyone.
Yeah.
I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
But I do have a limit. If I know you're sticking it to me, no. So, speaking of terrible corporations and companies and stuff like that, we took a vacation. Now, I'm not saying your job is like terrible or anything. I'm just saying in general. I was trying to lead into a segue, and then you went into making it worse. So I'm like, all right, here we go. But some real life advice is, if you're going to leave a company and you decide you're moving on, don't give them 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You make sure you get your pay and all that stuff settled up, right? And, don't quit before a payday. Make sure you get paid first and then quit.
Yeah.
And give them 2 weeks. And they get all mad about it, but I guarantee you they're the first ones to clear the stuff off the desk when you die. And they're also the first ones to replace you. Mm-hmm. They don't hesitate.
Yeah.
And they say, for the needs of the business. Well, you know what? No. Just so you know. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
You made a horrible segue.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, we decided to... You were like, hey, I got some days off. We should go somewhere. And, we did the usual, like, look around.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like the one place I've been trying to go for 6 or 7 months is always just booked up. Always. Yeah. And I just went through this again. You're like, hey, I got some more days off. I'm like, sweet, let me look. Booked up for like a month. So it's just like, okay, I'm never going to get down there. That's all right.
We're gonna, because now I really want to go there.
Yeah, because you can collect shark teeth.
Well, not just that.
On the beach, shark teeth. Remember how you're like, we want to go get some shark teeth? I'm like, oh,
not
joke's
just that,
on you.
Oh, it's cool. So, and it's a
What,
beach.
did you finally look into it?
No, I didn't.
I almost bought bikes. I'm like, that only seems like a long walk. But then I have to get a big silly helmet.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
I want a tricycle.
I am not buying a tricycle.
I want an adult tricycle.
Then you can spend the $526 for an adult tricycle.
$319.
Okay, you can carry it on your shoulders like Superman style, of your arm hanging out the window on the roof. Folds where?
I will send you a link.
Look. Mm-hmm. No. Is it electric?
No.
I'm going to get one that's electric, and we'll race.
Did you know e-bikes are banned in most state parks, national forests, and national parks?
You know what? No, I did not know that.
Yeah, so good luck with the e-bikes.
I'll get that mobility sticker.
Anything that
Guess who's disabled? I'll put that thing on there.
We have this conversation a lot.
And then when they're trying to talk to me, I'll just give it, I'll put it to speed factor 4. I don't know how electric bikes work, like how their speed things. I'm going to turn that thing up to 4 and just be like smoking tires.
It's
my big helmet.
It's a big debate with the Pisgah National Forest right now. Like, because think of how much easier it would be to like do like the Blue Ridge Parkway or even hunt ghosts. I mean, because you could just put your little gear and then put it in the back of your e-bike and then just ride down different trails.
Well, I think the way they're looking at it, they're not looking at it in a way that makes too much sense, because they just think that you're just going to be flying around 1,000 miles per hour on your little bike, right? What they don't realize is if they do that, if they say electrically powered vehicles or battery powered vehicles not allowed, then that means a person with a mobility assisted wheelchair, when they push it and the motors take over, they won't be able to go.
Yeah.
Or if they have a easy go scooter with a joystick, they won't be able to go.
Oddly enough, it's a
off-road wheelchair won't be able to go.
It's a thing that's basically if it has a motor and defines the type of motor, and that's where it causes e-bikes and other things.
Well, a lot of motors are like if you're doing a gasoline powered under 50 cc's, you don't really have to do anything. But I think that if they do this, I would hope that a bunch of disabled people or a bunch of people that have these mobility assisted electrically or battery powered mobility assisted devices get together and sue them. And that way you can set precedent. And that's what needs to happen. Sue them. Because I'm all about it. Because I see people that it's hard enough, like you being a part-time wheelchair user, you know, in my case, I roll it in and get it tuned up. It's hard enough just being able to just navigate that thing. I couldn't even imagine not being able to utilize, you know, the powerful lithium technology and all the electric motor stuff. You just take away, I mean, come on.
Interesting. So they're allowed in federally designated wilderness areas?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, come on.
Yeah.
They got to catch me first.
It's an erosion thing, which is
okay.
Dumb.
Now they're just making up excuses.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's an erosion. All right. Somebody complained. There's plenty of YouTube videos of the Karens and everything. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's whatever the guy equivalent of the Kyle. Is that what it is?
No,
Kyle's a silly like
Kyle's
youngster
punching holes.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway.
Jeff.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Anyway. Richard. Maybe it's Richard.
Ronald.
We're just making stuff up at this point. We're like 12 minutes in. We haven't talked about nothing. So, in trying to figure out where to go and what to do, because you like to go like, let's go dig in the dirt. And I'm just not about it because it's mud. I don't like mud because it gets in the van and you're like, yay. And I'm like, well, let me figure out how to clean this thing. Just saying. And you know, it's true. You're like, oh, just like when we went to Lake Shawnee. I'm trying to set things up and you're wandering around taking pictures, having a great time, making your own videos and stuff. And I'm like, oh, let me unpack everything and figure it all out.
Unpack as you go, as the need arises.
How can you unpack as you go if it's in the van and we have to be a quarter mile away? Oh, let me run back and get that. That is not happening. That's why we brought a wagon, which you thought was silly. Best idea ever.
Okay. Besides
that wagon, if something happened, I could just lay in it and you could just drag me across the thing. So we went to Lake Shawnee. It's an abandoned amusement park. It's also a haunted amusement park. And we actually made a video of our investigation. It's available for all the patrons over at our Patreon. So you can kind of check that out. And everything we say and talk about on the podcast is available on our website and other places, all the links and stuff. So you can kind of check them out at your leisure. So you can go to CreepGeeks.com. And if you wanted to call us and talk to us like Beans did in our last podcast, proved me wrong, his telephone number for you.
Oh.
You're not going to say what the telephone number is?
The telephone number is 575-208-4025.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we like to share stuff.
Yeah.
So we decided to go to Lake Shawnee. It's actually in West Virginia. It's an abandoned amusement park. Sometimes you'll see it referred to as a haunted abandoned amusement park. Yeah. It's been on Discovery, TLC, all the channels.
Yeah.
Because people have gone and done investigations there. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot of information on the internet. You think that there would be, and there is quite a bit, but there's just not a lot. That's fine. And so we booked online, and when we got there, we found out that the park itself, which you can stay overnight, but if you want to rent the entire park, you need to have parties of about 10 people.
Yeah.
To stay overnight. So there was no other people. They're like, hey, we had some stuff to do. We turned off reservations, so you guys get to stay overnight, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So we had a whole park to ourselves, which was great. And we went in and kind of went into the park there, and we did a tour, as you should do, with a tour guide, and his name is Chris. His family owns the park.
Yep.
Where he showed us some things to make sure we had a layout of the land and learn some history and family history type stuff.
Well, the tour was excellent, by the way.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And he figured out that we were smarter than the average bear and sort of catered to this, the spiel, because you have to do a spiel if you're going to do it for groups of people and get you down, and ratchet it up to our level of interest and not like the sub-level, stuff where people are like, I'm just doing this because I think it's neat.
I saw it on TikTok.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you guys want to know ghosty stuff, so I'm not going to form your opinions, but I'll tell you what's going on with the events and things that have happened and things have been documented.
Yep.
So there is an abandoned a burial ground, Indian burial ground there, which is actually pretty cool. There's a little spot.
Yeah.
Which is sort of separate from the ghosty stuff that you see on TV, but it's still there. And that's why it's, named Shawnee, Lake Shawnee.
Yeah. The whole property is broken up into sections, and it's explained to you that, yes, there was this amusement park, but prior to the amusement park, this particular area seemed to be strategically placed, that it was a good location for, the indigenous Shawnee as well as some other folk, pre-Shawnee, possibly tribes, may have lived there and died there. We were presented with some cool evidence that's exclusive to only your tour and visit of the place. And
yes, so we're being deliberately vague so that if you go, because he asked us, hey, we're like, yeah, absolutely, man. So we're not going to say, all the evidence that he showed and that sort of thing. We're not going to do that.
But it was very interesting evidence, and, they had a legitimate archaeological excavation there.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff that he presents and shows, what was uncovered. And then he goes into more modern information about the amusement park, some of the tragedy that happened, and then into more modern times where his family were using it as like a mudding area and stuff like that.
Yeah, go mudding.
Yeah. And then he starts to tie it back into some of the activity, and then he references some of the history that he had just explained to you. Great tour. So, yeah. Yeah,
great tour, nice guy. It was fun. If you're thinking about doing this sort of overnight investigation, and it's in West Virginia, here's a couple of things that weren't really answered on the website, because, I'll do some internet research before we commit to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, there's nothing better than driving 5 hours to realize, wow, this is awful. I should have, I wish this information was available. That's not the case here. Lake Shawnee Abandoned Amusement Park. There's a pavilion. There is power. There's places to use the bathroom, so you're not completely out in the middle of nowhere. Like I thought we were. I packed like 30 gallons of water and all sorts of crazy stuff. I just knew we were going to be in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's all the solar power and stuff. He's like, do you want to plug in? I'm like, yeah, that's great. So we got there and we decided to do the burial ground, because it's in, as you drive into the entrance and drive through and get onto the property. The burial ground is there, and it makes sense to go. And we, part of the reason why I wanted to go there was before it got dark and possibly rained and got soft, because you're driving on grass. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I wanted to do was to be trying to dig out a van, And so there's trails to follow, that sort of thing. And he was pretty good about telling us, hey, if you're thinking about driving over there, don't. Because it's narrow and you would get stuck, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So along with having the pavilion and power and place to use the bathroom and that sort of thing, there are also stores nearby.
Yeah.
So you can hang a right out of the abandoned amusement park and drive not even a quarter of a mile, and there's a gas station, there's a diner, things like that. So you're not completely out in the middle of nowhere. So if you decided, I'm going to take a trip and go out there and stay overnight, but I don't have any ice or anything to drink or something to eat or any of that stuff, you can get that. Also, there's a fire pit there.
Yeah.
In the pavilion. So you can, and he provides firewood. Yeah. And he's like, hey, you want to cook? Here you go. I got this stuff for you and stuff. We didn't, because it was windy, and leaving where we are in Western North Carolina, where things are just catching on fire because, wind and fire. From people burning stuff, we decided, to not do that. So anyway, so your amenities are taken care of. That's what you're looking for. But we went to the burial ground.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I went with you when Chris was giving us the guided tour and explaining some things and showing us some information, I got dizzy.
Yeah.
And stayed dizzy the whole time we were there. And so then when we got done, or when he finished the presentation, said, let's go on and look at the rest of the stuff. As we left the burial ground, I felt fine. So I'm good. So we did all that stuff, and we're like, okay. And he finished up the rest of his information. I said, you know what? We're going to run. He said the diner has big, giant hamburgers, because we started talking about meat, and I'm not sure what brought that on, but he said, hey, if you're looking for a big old, diner hamburger, I'm like, yeah. I didn't even let him finish. I'm like, of course I am. Right? He's like, yeah, it's right down the road. It's like, cool. He's like, they closed at 5, and we finished the thing, and we're like, all right, we're leaving.
Yeah.
We're going to go here. I said, can we leave and come back? He said, absolutely. Just send a text message, saying that you're leaving. And, plus they have cameras for entrance and stuff, or for entrance and exit. So that's what we did, right? We went. Yeah. And guess what? It was closed. I was slightly disappointed.
They had just closed.
Yeah.
So we ended up.
But it was 3:30. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess they were busy or weren't busy, because she was like, hey, we're going to go drink these twisted teas, me and my boyfriend. I'm like, all right, I got you.
So
but anyway.
Instead, we went left as opposed to right. And we headed towards the area of Princeton, West Virginia, which in itself, I kind of want to go back and visit.
Yeah, it's a neat town to walk around. It's got enough stuff like, wow, we could walk around and take pictures if you like photography and see some things, little diners
rail
and
museum.
Stuff.
They have art. They had these they had this cute little bookshop. And we ate at a very interesting little diner where I had some amazing blueberry pancakes. But yeah, and
I was actually going to bring this up, not on the podcast, but I'll put you on the spot. We've got more days coming up. Maybe we can ride back out there again. It wasn't too terrible of a ride on the way back.
Yeah.
On the way up, it was a little hairy, but
yeah. But when Greg got dizzy during the tour, I just I kind of just looked at my watch and was like, oh, maybe low blood sugar, maybe we're tired. He's been driving all this, several hours. Maybe we just need some food in us. Well, we got food in us. We did a little bit more driving, then came back. And we went to
the burial ground again.
Yeah.
Because people leave little offerings and stuff as kind of a show of respect, that sort of thing. At the burial ground, there's a little marker there that has a neat face in it. So dizzy again.
Yeah. For you.
Yeah. As soon as I got up to it, dizzy.
Yeah.
I couldn't even, I tried to start a video to record some things. Dizzy. Had to do it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. For you, you were dizzy. Again, for me, I find it interesting because, when we went to Aurora, Texas, and we've been to some other places like Madrid, New Mexico, and some place in Alabama. Every time we've been confronted with a grave situation, I'm the type of person that likes to touch all the stuff on the grave. Mm. And there's only been 2 instances of me being respectful, and Lake Shawnee was one of them. I was not ooh, look at this. I kind of felt the urge to not disrupt this particular monument or gravesite spot. And the only other time I felt that way was in New Mexico. So
it's
that when we
went to thousands of years old.
Yeah, that's why. And and I remember with the Aurora, Texas, alien spot.
Yeah, the alien cemetery.
I kept trying to touch.
Alien cemetery grave.
Yeah, I kept trying to touch stuff, And in this instance, I was very respectful. I can't even explain myself. I just put my offerings there. We did give an offering of tobacco, just in case, because it's always good to do that. And you were still dizzy, and you stayed dizzy until
we left.
Yeah.
And we drove 1/8 of a mile away and felt better. So we went and got set up at the pavilion to go to do some investigation stuff, brought a wagon. We brought a whole bunch of stuff, overbrought. A bunch of gizmos and gadgets and stuff like that, that in our podcast we're going to talk about ghost hunting gear to avoid. And, spoiler, it lists everything we brought. So, and I have a little bit of a bone to pick with this article, so that's why I kind of threw it in there. But
okay.
So on the abandoned amusement park site, there's a couple key areas of interest to go. The first one, if you're parked at the pavilion, is going to be the abandoned school bus.
Yeah.
Which belonged to a relative of Chris. And then you have the ticket booth.
Yep.
And one of the things he told us is that when they were filming shows, because shows come and they rent out the entire park and they film like the most scariest haunted abandoned amusement park in America.
Yeah.
These places will make you die. You know, all the shows that you see, right?
Yeah.
There was a part of the crew that was there. I can't remember if she was an actress or whatever, but she felt sick and she said, you know, she went to, they were like, hey, go hang out in the ticket booth. Because I guess people show up in the wintertime or whenever they're going to film, right? Mm-hmm. And she had a little bit of a meltdown because she was trapped in this ticket booth and she couldn't get out. Was locked in. Well, the crew freaked out, ran over there and just opened the door. Yeah. Like there was no reason for her to be locked in there. Like what was all the, you know, they just opened it. Like it wasn't locked. It was just shut.
And here's the thing. When we went up to it, we can just push it inward because, you know. So
I thought that was kind of interesting because you make mental notes if you're going to go do an investigation. And the bus was interesting. The ticket booth was interesting. And if you circle back around to we'll call it the good stuff, walk around the other side of the lake, you can go down to the burial site, which has the grave marker for the family that was basically killed by natives. It has its own little history. And then you get to the Ferris wheel, which is the big money item, right? And then the swings. And there's a couple tables set up where people leave gifts because the idea is that this place is mostly children. It seems like the activity that may or may not happen comes from mostly children. And there's another ticket booth. And so when we pulled into the pavilion and got set up after we came back from the diner and then stopping by the burial ground, I started pulling stuff out and you said, I'm going to go take some pictures before it gets dark. And you went over into the good side. It had the swings and the Ferris wheel and took some pictures and did some video. And one of the things that was interesting, because the only thing we're really going to tell you in this whole thing about going to the Lake Shawnee Abandoned Amusement Park is that some of the weird stuff that we experienced, and all that's in the video.
Yeah.
And we have 2 radios that we carry. So when we're too far out of sight, these radios have pretty good range. We can, talk to each other. They've been one of the best things I've ever bought. Completely reliable. Batteries last a long time. They're pretty indestructible. It's been solid. There's no problems with cheap or cheesy feeling electronic pieces like switches and buttons and antennas and stuff. It's a good quality radio. That's why I was surprised when I got them. Like, these are great radios.
Yeah.
And you kept having an issue.
Yes. So my issue didn't start until I went to where the swing ride is. And the swing ride was one of the more notable deaths to happen at this amusement park. A girl was on the swing ride and a truck backed into the ride and I guess unfortunately killed her while she was on the swing. It was pretty bad because I guess there was other people at the park. There were other people on the ride, but unfortunately this girl passed away due to this truck backing into the amusement. And overall, I hadn't really felt anything short of that, oddly respectful moment at the burial ground site. But as soon as I got towards the swing, I just felt creepy. Like stuff was just creepy. And it could have just been the fact that there's all these toys that are left and they're supposed to be left with kindness and they're not. The intention there is not to be creepy. They are genuine offerings for the spirits of children who have passed there. But just being around that stuff felt uncomfortable.
Yeah, you got stuffed animals been left out in the weather.
Yeah. And
they'd all look off.
So I went to, there's a little mini ticket booth next to the ride, and it's kind of getting to golden hour, almost past golden hour, so it's a good time to take pictures. So I'm just taking pictures right there, and I took some pictures of a creepy doll, and then as soon as I started to walk over to the swing, I thought Greg had messaged me, or called me on the walkie-talkie, and he hadn't. The walkie-talkie itself just said 11.
Yeah, we use channel 11 because 1 and 1 make 2, and there's 2 radios.
Yeah, and I was like, okay. And then I started walking over to the actual swing, bent down to take a picture, and heard it say 11 again. And I'm like, but by the time I looked down at the walkie-talkie, it said again, 11, 11. And it continued to do this about 5 or 6 times. And at that point, you did actually message me and ask me what was up, and I told you about it. And I ended up doing a video right then because it was just weird that this thing decided to act up right then. And then it started to act up on command.
Yeah.
So.
Which is the first time I've ever experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, with the radio, it was just like, "You going to do it again?" And you're like, "Oh."
And
in the video, you mentioned something about doing it like 11 times, and it did it like,
yeah.
I didn't count as soon as I heard it.
Yeah.
And it like did it either 11 or 13 times. I don't know. It just kept going.
Well, see, I was being sarcastic because I was kind of getting cheeky. I don't know why. I was explaining in the video. Now, it didn't do it 11 times. It probably did it about 5.
It just kept going.
And then it did it 5 times.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of moments in me doing video where I'm like, "Are you done yet?" And it does like one more.
Yeah.
Like it's got to get the last word.
Like both you guys were being snarky, whoever that was.
But the thing that kind of unnerved me a little bit, though, was it's a walkie-talkie. It has pre-programmed numbers that it can say. And it said something that it's not pre-programmed to say.
It'll say, low battery.
Yeah.
Power on, power off.
Yeah.
And then all the channels.
Yeah.
That's it. And it was saying stuff like, "Here."
And hey.
And hey. And doing it in the pre-programmed voice. So it wasn't just like a random voice coming in. Maybe somebody's got another radio or a walkie-talkie in the area and it's just stepping on the signal. It was saying that kind of stuff. And when you brought the when you brought it over to me, and you brought the radio back over to me and told me, the first thing I did was start banging on the buttons.
Yeah.
To see if it's a loose connection, to see if maybe the knob's out of whack, that kind of thing. Just tapping on it and doing all, and it wouldn't do it. It wouldn't make any peep at all.
Yep.
And then it was quiet for a while.
And then you handed it back to me.
Yeah, and then it kept doing it. It started doing it again. And then you set it down and stepped away, and it kept doing it. So it's just like, and it did this off and on like all night. Like you just had a little tag along.
Yeah.
Because once we got all set up, and in the video that we put up on Patreon, I kind of went through some of the basic stuff that we were going to carry, like a 4G router, a couple of small, inexpensive Wise cameras, that kind of thing, and a wagon. We went off to the abandoned school bus, or to the school bus that's there on the property, and we went inside to do some EVP type stuff, or spirit box, I should say.
Yeah.
And we started asking questions. And we didn't really get anything that we could understand, but every time you'd ask a question, it would respond.
Yeah.
Is anybody here? It was just like, as soon as you got done talking, it would respond.
But we were so focused on hopefully getting like an actual response, like we have it Off the Wagon Piano Bar.
Yeah, places like that.
And a couple other places we're used to like eventually waiting.
Yeah, we just wrote it off.
Yeah.
It's like, "Hey, do you like being here?"
Yeah.
And we just wrote it off, because when I was going through this, looking at some of the video stuff to put together to make a video, I'm like, man, if this had been like 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have been stupid excited.
Yeah.
We're just like, So we're just running around, just basically wrecking the entire thing by just, that's not good enough for me. And we thought about it, like all these shows that are on television, you get so desensitized to where you just want something, crazy to happen. Well, the whole time we had stuff going on and we didn't really pay too much attention to it.
So we tried to do EVP near the Indian Burial Monument, and, we started up the recorder or whatever and stuff like that.
Zoom H1N.
Yeah. And at the Native Monument, and I realized within a few minutes, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. We're being impatient because it's been a while since we've done this. We were kind of expecting, and, because I know on television, it's like, oh wow, they get an instant response. And in reality, sometimes for some of these investigations, you're waiting like 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah, even longer.
And
we're like, well, if you didn't say anything, see you later.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's like, okay, so we went to the school bus. We didn't get a whole lot, or we thought we didn't get a whole lot. Afterwards, every time we'd ask a question, something would happen, static or a blurb. You couldn't make out a definitive word, but it was still a response. So the call response was there. And then we left and went off to the ticket booth after we passed the playgrounds. Didn't really get a whole lot because there's a little playground set with a swing and a little geodesic dome thing that you climb over. Not like monkey bars, but
I call it the igloo.
Maybe it's
that's what they called it in my elementary school.
All right, well, the igloo thing, didn't really get a whole lot there. Went to the ticket booth, and we set up on the table. And we had been using the cameras and everything to sort of record some things. But I should say that as we got to the bus, phone battery started dying.
Yeah.
Went from being 100% down to like 50.
Yep.
So we swapped to a regular camera just to kind of see, and that seemed to do a little bit better. But we got over to the ticket booth where the lady, the production member, was stuck and couldn't get out. Asked some questions. We broke out EMF detector because the light, it was a cable run into a box, and it did have some pretty high EMF there. Yeah. But all of a sudden, the cameras that we'd been using for 3 hours all needed firmware updates.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, and not just one. Like, we all need like 6 or 7 updates. I updated the firmware before we ever got started. When you were walking around taking your pictures, I was updating firmware.
You were updating firmware, and that's another thing we should add as an amenity to this location. You have good cell phone signal.
Yeah, 5G, whole time.
Technically, we probably should have done some lives, some live videos. But it's good enough there that you could possibly do that. So why, in the span of him doing the updates while I'm taking pictures, and then what, an hour and a half, 2 hours later? There's
I need to do all the updates.
Yeah.
Again.
And that's
it was
also
weird. It angered me, but
that particular corner, though, like, I didn't like that particular spot after dark. Like, because technically, when you're at Lake Shawnee, you stop at the ticket booth, then you go around the little mini lake, and you go around this certain direction so that you go to another little abandoned vehicle, and then you hit the swings from a different direction.
Yeah.
We didn't. No. And the initial excuse was the fact that there's some angry geese there, and we didn't want to disturb the geese or get chased in the middle of the night by geese.
Yeah, because where there's angry geese, there's geese poop.
Yeah. But it was just, that particular corner just felt not that good. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
we backtracked and went back. At the time, we had the router, because we have a 4G cellular router with a SIM card in it. And since we had signal, it was like, cool, I'm just going to set this router up, and hopefully the router range will extend all the way across the lake, so wherever we put a camera, should be no problem. So that if we get any kind of alerts, they'll pop to our phone, right?
Yeah.
Because the days of dragging around in VR, and running cables and doing all that stuff, I'm not doing it. Some people will say, well, you can't really use those because Wi-Fi signal or radio signal, and you don't get the best results unless, and nobody can prove that to be true or not. So, I use the cameras that we had. I have like 5 or 6 Wise cameras, with alerts and stuff. I'm like, hey, we're just going to use those. But didn't realize or didn't think about it. I'm like, I don't think the range is going to work. I'm like, wait a minute. You got a battery bank. I had a big, a battery generator, you see them referred to as like solar generator. And it's just a big battery in a box, and you can plug stuff into it. Mm-hmm. That's the way they all are. So I'm like, why don't I just take the router and put it in a wagon? We can take the router wherever we want to go and set the cameras up. It's like, oh yeah, there you go, moron. So we, I think we went back to the pavilion, grabbed some stuff, and decided to go to the front of the park. Because when you drive in, you have the Lake Shawnee mural, and you have this creepy clown face. There's bathrooms, and we started to go there.
Yeah.
That place was kind of creepy because you're like in an alleyway sort of thing. Yeah, buildings on both sides.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't really anything that was,
And there was an old RV there that looked creepy too.
Yeah, but it had nice rims on it because we had almost the same RV.
Yeah.
Like, man, I would love having those rims, man.
Yeah.
And so that was okay. It was just, that was a little creepy. It was like you got the feeling that people were looking at you through the windows.
Yeah.
So we kind of went back to the pavilion area so we could walk around and go to the swings and the Ferris wheel and the other ticket booth and the tables with all the little stuffed animals and stuff. But as you walk through there, it's just...
You're walking down like a narrow...
trail,
and on both sides are water. On one side is like bog, and then on the other side is is
the small
Lake
part
Shawnee.
of Lake Shawnee.
Yeah. And the whole time, I think you were like, during the summer, I bet this is covered in snakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we kept having little frogs. It's early in the season, but there was already so many tree frogs. It was very loud.
Yeah.
And you have frogs on both sides just emitting these huge croaking sounds.
Yeah, you can't even, they're looking for love. Like,
yeah.
Doing the tree frog sound.
Yeah. But then it suddenly lets out and you're in front of the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
And
it's all overgrown and stuff, so it's a pretty cool place to take some, bulb exposure or time-lapse type pictures.
I should have done time-lapse too. Darn.
Well, I mean, there's so much to do, and this is one of those things where you can't do it all in one trip because you'll forget a bunch of stuff. Oh, we should have done this. We should have did that. And so it's not a bad idea to go back again if you're going to go, if you have some experience. So
yeah,
we went and we took some pictures. I didn't feel really anything too bad, like off-putting. Just kind of felt, kind of weird being there, but took some pictures. We made it over to the swings, also recorded some video, but we went over to the swings and we left a little toy because everybody else is leaving toys for the kids. I think I found the seat.
Yeah.
Because Chris says the seat's still there. He's not going to tell you which one. You can probably figure it out. And I think we found the seat. And we did EVP the whole time. I just recorded the audio, and I listened to it and got nothing. And there were some stuffed animals that weren't knocked down when you went the first time, and when we came back at night, there was some stuff knocked down. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on. Could have been critter activity. Yeah. It's the perfect place for raccoons.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But overall, it was good. We made it back to the van and settled in for the night, set the camera up to see if we were recording anything.
Yep.
Coming down the road, because there's like one way in, one way out. So when you're at the pavilion, there's only one way for cars to come in, one way for cars to go out. So, and everything was great. Ate a little bit, said, okay, we got the van, everything all locked up and stuff. We were all on our, mobile investigation platform, the Great White Buffalo.
Yeah.
All locked in, secured, hit the button and everything
Albino
so nobody
Rhino.
can get in. What did I say?
Great White Buffalo.
Oh, man. Yeah, the Albino Rhino. I've been thinking a lot about that van. I had weird dreams.
Yeah.
All night.
Yep.
Like, I typically have some strange dreams, but these were period dreams, as in they took place at a certain time. Time period. Like in history.
Okay.
And it was just odd. And so we left and went home, right? We'll just wrap it up by saying we went home the next day.
Yeah.
I had weird dreams again.
Okay.
Same time period, same people, different time, like a year later.
Okay.
And in that dream, after I left that dream with those group of 4 people that were in there, I remember their faces. It's very, very odd. They were all serving, service in World War II. There was 2 ladies and 2 dudes. They knew each other growing up, right? They were all friends. One lady and a dude were a couple. The other 2 were close friends, possibly family. I think one guy was in like the Civil Air Service, which is the people that would, look for planes and stuff.
Yeah.
They were all from West Virginia. They were all like local to a certain degree. One lady was wearing a uniform. One guy was just wearing a suit from the 40s, because they were all at like an event. Where people show up for dances, that kind of thing, where the community puts on events to try to keep things light, right?
Yeah.
Like a morale, sort of welfare and recreation type event. And they knew each other, and it's sort of a weird thing. And, I was there, kind of like fly on the wall, sitting in close proximity to them, but not part of their group.
Yeah.
So that was kind of off, sort of strange. It was a very vivid dream. And then my next dream was we were walking through a trail, and a snake was set to bite you in the face. So I pushed you.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to snatch the snake like Crocodile Dundee or something, because I just can't, right? So I'm like, I need to get her out of the way. And what it reminded me of was like the guy who goes up to his own house and the snake sitting up on the doorbell and like tries to get him and bites him in the head. You ever seen those?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I pushed you out of the way. I was trying to push you out of the way, and of course it ended, and I woke up because I had pushed you. You know, like, trying to save your life. So, and then, you know, just last night I had another dream that was crazy. We were driving in a car, right? An old open car, like a Willys Jeep, like an old Jeep.
Yeah.
And a bear comes running down off the hill, like right to the side of the Jeep. And, you know, as it jumps in to claw us to death, you know, that's when I woke up. But yeah, I had some off dreams, and they were dreams that were like somebody was like, "Hey, I need you to pay attention," kind of a thing, or "Hey, you missed out." Or, you know, and the whole time we were doing our investigation, it was like, "If you think we're good at our jobs, let us know." You know, if you think, and it's just kind of like, since we were so meh with the whole thing because we weren't tuned to realizing that we were getting stuff all night long. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was weird. And so I started editing a video together. I'm like, wow, every time you ask a question, you get a response. Every time I ask a question, I get nothing or an angry static.
Yeah.
Like, hey, isn't he? It's like, and you're getting like, hey, you know. And there were a couple words that were said, but do they apply? I don't know. But there was like you know, in the sweep, there was activity that seemed to be responding like when you asked it or a couple seconds after, and then going back to static and nothing.
Yeah. So
had we been, like I said, 3 years ago, we'd been jumping up and down. Holy moly, we're getting all sorts of stuff. So we had, you know, the weird stuff was instances of being dizzy, the radio acted, and the radio acted up a couple different times. It stopped when we got to a certain point. Once we got to where the tractor was before the bus, it did not happen again.
Yeah.
Once we got back around, it started happening again. The spirit box with the activity response to questions, battery drain with our phones, and I had weird dreams for 2 nights. And you said you kept hearing weird noises at night when we were trying to sleep.
Yeah. So, and I kept hearing what sounded like, at first I wondered if it was going to rain, but then it just sounded like not necessarily tapping, but clicking like that.
Yeah, like little devil toenails?
Yeah. You mean little raccoon toenails?
Could be raccoon.
Yeah. But I wasn't sure, and I
definitely didn't leave the van doors open.
Yeah.
There's certain places you just leave them open. Yeah. Other places I'm like,
No. But I think I slept well. I slept hard. But then again, yes, this was a vacation for us to go do something fun. It was also a vacation because I absolutely needed a vacation. So sleeping really hard is part of my vacation.
Well, when we travel in the van, I always sleep hard. I'm always so tired.
Yeah.
That once you stop, and I was surprised. The van felt really big. I'm like, ooh, I got all this room. I'm kicking my legs around. And then the thought was, wow, I'm shrinking. Because we took a trip before and went to New Mexico to see Dave and Kristen.
Yeah.
And Dale and Devin. And they're youngins, right? It's like, my feet were right on the edge. And it was like, I had room. It was comfortable, but I didn't have a whole lot of room. And this time I had a whole bunch of room. I'm like, man, I must be like 2'5" now compared to being over 6 feet from before. It was very strange.
But it was it's definitely a place that we should go back to. We need to plan. And one thing that you didn't mention, we did leave because we were, despite me sleeping well and you being exhausted, we managed to forget something very important when we do these paranormal investigations. You forgot your little protection bracelet I made. And I knew I packed mine along with some other important stuff because we have a little...
But by God, we had 6 or 8 Lunchables, which we didn't eat any of that stuff.
But it's really important since Greg is sensitive, and I'm not making jokes here. That
it sounded an awful lot like you were going to make a joke.
That, just for tradition and just to peace of mind, that you wear some obsidian, some golden obsidian, and you wear some other things to help protect should there be negative energy and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Brute Cologne and Aqua Velva.
Would you stop? That's not going to scare a ghost away.
Depends.
Okay.
Depends on the ghost.
Anyways, if the ghost died in the 70s, anyways. But somehow, and in 2 different scenarios, your bracelet wasn't in our gear, and mine, I thought I packed in our gear, and it went missing for several days.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I didn't find it until 2 days ago. So
it was not where it was supposed to be.
Yeah. And
so I usually keep one in the van.
Yeah.
Like 2 in the van, just because he made them for me. And they were blessed. We had them blessed at one of the events by a demonologist / preacher guy.
Did you get the, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I walked over and said, hey, we do ghost investigations and stuff. My wife made this stuff to protect me because I'm a, decrepit person. And he was like, oh, I was like, can you do anything to kind of help us out? And he said, I'll bless this for you.
Yeah.
And put some protection on. I'm like, sure, man.
No, what I was going to say was, did you find the video? Because I managed to finally find that missing video of him doing that.
No, I didn't find the video.
Yeah, and I shared it with you.
When? 5 years ago?
No, like I found it like a week or 2 ago, and I was like,
oh, well,
because that whole South Carolina trip where we met that demonologist and went to one of the Paracon type events, we lost all the footage, and we originally blamed it on Eric Mitchell. Now, half of it's still missing, but I did find the demonologist stuff, which actually
but that stuff was recorded separate and wasn't in the same possession.
Yeah.
When you were interviewing Eric Mitchell.
That's true.
But see, that trip, we had problems the entire time.
Yeah.
It was like, you're not going to make it here. We almost got hit a couple times. The roads were blocked off. It was odd. And we were late because of it.
Yeah.
So, Toby and, anyway, so it was the thing.
Yeah.
So that was our Lake Shawnee sort of trip, and we did a little video action so you can see everything we sort of talked about. Just kind of wanted to do like a sort of a helicopter view of what we experienced. It was pretty neat. A couple of days later, looking back at it, I was like, wow, either we are bad at this, but it's just like, wow, man, there was so much that we should have been tuned in and paid attention to.
Yeah.
And I think part of it was we had a little bit of a divergent interest. The interest was, let's not go and do this and be super hardcore about it. It's like, let's just go kind of, kick around for a minute.
Yeah.
But also serve the purpose of doing something that we both have a common interest with. Like, you want to go dig in the dirt or you want to go hunt ghosts? Let's go hunt ghosts. That seems like that's fun for both of us. Plus it worked out because, we had a couple days to recuperate.
Yeah.
Because, if you're a night person and you don't have to worry about being up in the day, hunting ghosts is no problem. But if you're a day walker,
I held my own. I was up till what?
I didn't say you didn't. I'm saying we also had Sunday and Monday off to kind of, wrap it up because we were going to do a couple different things and go somewhere else. And it's just like, let's just go home.
Yeah.
Because everything we want to go to is on fire.
That's true.
It's like, oh, you can drive 5 hours and it's going to be on fire when you get there. Well, I didn't want to deal with the sinus infection that comes from sleeping in a forest fire because it's bad for your respiratories.
Yeah. Like I had wanted to go to Great Smoky Mountains area. Nope.
Fire. Let's go to South Carolina. You can get there. Number one, it's booked. You can get 1 day.
Number 2, you'll drive through 2 hours of fire.
Yeah.
God.
So it was a thing. So we're going to talk about a couple more things as we get ready to wrap up the podcast. These are some ghost hunting gadgets that you should avoid if you want to be taken seriously as an investigator.
Yeah.
And this is from Higgy Pop, and I just happened to catch it when I was like doing stuff. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, so here's the first one. EMF meters. EMF, the electromagnetic field meters are popular on ghost hunts, and they're originally designed to detect electromagnetic fields generated by electrical devices and wiring. Yes, that's what it does. The link between EMF readings and paranormal activity comes from the speculation that ghosts might manipulate electromagnetic fields.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything creates its own electromagnetic field. That's part of being, on Earth. Everything has its own field.
Yeah.
So here's where they point out the flaw. The most significant flaw with EMF meters is their susceptibility to false positives. Environmental factors like faulty wiring, mobile phones, even household appliances can cause EMF spikes.
Okay.
Sure. It's radio energy.
Sure.
You can key up a radio and set them off. Yes, it happens, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to be aware of these limitations and consider the context of any readings. Yeah, everybody knows that. And it's like, oh. Next one, spirit boxes. So we're already at number 2 of the things that we carried out there, right?
Yeah.
These devices rapidly scan through the AM or FM radio spectrum, and you got the sounds of white noise, and every once in a while you get a fleeting snippet of a radio broadcast, maybe a word or a sentence, that kind of thing. Can be excited to hear what seems like intelligent responses. Skeptics argue that this phenomenon is often a result of pareidolia, which is basically the brain saying, "Ooh, there's something to this." So, and of course, if you're going to have that, any ability to sort of use that device and try to bend it towards what you think is happening, and it goes against the validity of using a device to help you search for ghosts. So, now here in America, you won't hear cussing on the radio. Yeah. And I've seen some videos and stuff where the spirit box is doing its thing, scanning through the frequencies, and you start hearing cuss words.
Yeah.
And that's happened at the dueling piano bar when we were there. Like you hear a voice just pop out of nowhere calling you an MFer. And it was loud too. It was like, oh, I don't think that's, I would count that as being something legit. So, SLS cameras, get the stick cam and all that.
Which is funny because I kind of wanted that at Lake Shawnee. We
could have brought it. But here's a stupid thing. We could have just turned on your phone. My phone has it too. Uses LiDAR.
How? You're going to have to show me.
Well, you didn't put the app on there. But yeah. So you're telling me that, an SLS cam, can't talk, structured light sensor cameras, a lot of them use lasers, right? And they use LiDAR to point out the student out like 10,000 little, laser dots to paint the picture. You can use that to detect a Mayan Aztec temple underneath, 10 feet of jungle overgrowth, and science will use that, but you can't point it down a hallway and see a dancing stick figure. It doesn't have the same validity. Yeah. Shut your face.
Or you can guess that there's hidden Utah gold or, pirate treasure someplace.
Good enough to map things, but it's not good enough for you to use in a ghost situation.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I'm like, all right. I mean, sure, some of these things are not as good as others, but we're starting to put it in context, right? Here's your favorite.
Oh, okay. So, and I just realized this when we were driving back. So when we were at Lake Shawnee, on the abandoned school bus, or the schoolie, and then in another spot, we saw where some ghost hunters had accidentally left their cat balls. And cat balls are low tech, but very popular, and they're effective because they're considered trigger objects in ghost hunting. They have a battery, and they've got a little light up type thing inside, and if they move, they light up. So if you're in a calm environment, like indoors, or at least where you're shielded from the wind, and there's no like severe slope or anything, the results you get from these is fantastic. You get a visual result of some sort of activity in the area. But this, I don't know.
Well, here's the article author says. The problem with cat balls isn't the way they're used or even the theory behind them. It's the quality of the devices themselves. Yeah. These balls are designed to entertain pets, not to serve as scientific instruments.
So what did I leave? What did I leave at Lake Shawnee? I had bought these cute little toys that were balls, and they had these little textures on them. One was the shape of an alien, and he had little alien horns, and another was just like a little monster. But they were essentially large cat balls because if you squeezed them, or if they rolled enough, like hard enough,
they'd light up.
Yeah. So I basically left 2 really good ghost hunting tools as toys for the child spirits at Lake Shawnee.
Yes, I think that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But see, here's the problem I have. The problem with cat balls isn't the way they're used or even the theory behind them. It's the quality of devices themselves. They're used to entertain pets, not to serve as scientific instruments. But in the same article, when you use scientific instruments, they're not good enough for ghost hunting because, you can't quantify it saying this caused that scientific instrument to have that result or that measurement. So what the hell do you want, man? Yeah. And then he talks about electronic speech synthesis, which is when you have like an Ovilus box where it puts words in and starts putting off words, and mobile phone apps. So it's like, okay, so by the time you get to the very end of this thing, it says, hey, the best thing to use is your brain. And just be, critical thinking and do all the be skeptical and do all that stuff and write things down, that kind of thing, right? To document your experience. Well, that's great. I can't show Omi my brain and my experience. What I can do is I can show Omi a video of that thing saying 11 the whole time, and every time she said something, they go, psh,
yeah,
psh, 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 try to talk to you. So my entire feeling about this little article where it basically says the ghost hunting gadgets you should avoid if you want to be taken seriously as an investigator, that is so 2000.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. I have a phone that uses LiDAR. I can basically do a 3D map of a footprint on a trail.
Yeah.
I can create a 3D sculpture outline. Dude, it is 2025. Everybody is using it. Is it all accurate and it's going to be definitive as a way to prove the existence of ghosts or anything like that? Well, no.
No.
But I'm going. What do you want me to do? Sketch out a sketchy picture of Bigfoot and go, here you go. This is what I seen. Or I can show you a blurry picture and go, man, I know it's terrible, but this is the best I got. Because I did a picture. I zoomed in my little crappy phone all the way. I mean, come on, man.
Oh.
This is an old way of thinking, which I understand the thought behind it. And they're obviously putting an instance where they've seen investigators or whatever just willy-nilly using this stuff and not in a way that he would, and just discounting the entire thing. Which happens. There's people out there doing this stuff. And everybody that says they're a professional, there is you cannot be a professional ghost hunter. Where did you get your qualifications, your certifications? Do they actually stand up in court? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, don't. It doesn't stand up under the scrutiny of other scientists and stuff like that. No, none of it does. I mean, you can get a degree in parapsychology and stuff. That's great. You can't prove any of it. It's just people have gotten together in academia and decided, okay, you know what? We can give you a degree in parapsychology because there's obviously something to it. Can't really say what it is, can't put our finger on it, but, But then even then, are you an expert? What counts? It's just going to be the information you present and, I don't know, kind of going off on a tangent. I mean, I think the closest person I know who's definitely an expert in some of this stuff is Jeff Meldrum.
Yeah.
He's an anthropologist, man. He looks at feet. Right?
Okay.
So when he sees a footprint, he's like, that's not human. I think he would know. He's like a professor and stuff. He works in the field.
Okay.
Right? I mean, he does. So when you hand him something he can't explain or says that does not meet the hallmarks of what we consider to be human, that's something.
All right.
So, I mean, that kind of makes sense. But anybody else, what you got? I mean, come on, what you got? You got nothing. I don't know. So this article, grain of salt, it's 2025, man.
The whole mobile apps thing.
I mean, mobile apps, a lot of them, they all say for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
But everything says that because if they said this is guaranteed to get you ghosted, they get sued.
Yeah.
Because that's the way we're in a sort of contentious society where somebody's like, I went out to do this and I didn't get any activity. You're lying.
Well, the compass, magnometer, the accelerometer, those are useful. But if you download, there's a bunch of them from the App Store or Google Store or whatever.
Yeah, Play Store.
Specific ghost hunting apps. Some of them, especially the ones that work as a spirit box. But then you have another phone or you have a timer on your tablet.
Yeah.
You can tell that they're kind of rigged and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Of course. Yeah. But I would say use anything you can to try to do something, prove something, But at the end of the day, you're going to have somebody who goes, that's amazing. And then you have somebody else who goes, that's crap.
Yeah.
So there you go. Pick your poison when it comes to this stuff. So, and most of these devices are legit devices. You're just using them to try to make it work for jumping into the paranormal.
Yeah.
So they're physical counterparts. Have a purpose. They are measurement devices. Now, I will say, if you buy some of this stuff, if it has the ability to be calibrated before use, you should do that. Like our little EMF meters, we have to calibrate them. We calibrate them before every use. It's pretty easy to do. We tap the button 5 times and it wipes it all out, so you can start over fresh. Kind of is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a couple of things. We have a couple of different things we want to talk about. Basically some tech stuff, a little bit of conspiracy stuff, weird stuff. Do you want to talk about Bigfoot during Halloween first?
Well, that's just, we had a section for cryptid news, and it's just a little rant I have.
Well, go ahead. Rant under, see, in case you're not aware of the podcast, we have sections that we like to cover because we are paranormal weird news, and we also share our experiences. It's listed as news, aliens, tech, conspiracy, weird stuff, cryptid news, paranormal, and whatever else doesn't fit. I have one for a while, like weird animal stuff. It only happens certain times of the year, though. So what is your cryptid news, Omi rant?
Well, you and me were having the conversation, and it actually paralleled a conversation I had with some friends earlier this week. And the position or opinion was that Hurricane Helene should have, with the amount of devastation it did to the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Great Smoky Mountains, should have uncovered more evidence of Bigfoot. And if you think about it, yes, that would be true. The amount of devastation, especially because I was just in a conference on Tuesday where I got to see parts of the Blue Ridge Parkway and parts of the Pisgah National Forest that will be closed indefinitely. And the amount of damage and destruction in those spots, you can barely wrap your head around, especially since a couple of these photos, I was standing in those exact same spots like last July or last September. There's an area relatively near us called Curtis Creek. It's in the heart of the Pisgah National Forest in Old Fort, specifically a Newberry Creek place where you're standing pretty much in what's considered a ravine, and you look up and you have to keep looking up to actually see because you are at the base of a foothill, which is technically a mountain. There's just so much. And now that same spot, you see 3,000 trees down.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing. So you would think with the amount of damage and destruction that was done and the amount of things that were uncovered, because we actually have a nearby graveyard that was significantly damaged. Everybody's seen that TikTok where somebody's casket was floating down a river in Tennessee. Unfortunately, that did happen.
Yeah.
But with all that damage, where are the Bigfoot bodies? Where's this? Where's that? And unfortunately, we have not been made aware of anything like that. Sadly, about 4 or 5 days ago, a person who went missing in East Tennessee, his remains were recovered. And then a person who went missing in Avery County in North Carolina, near the North Toe River, which is actually where allegedly a lot of Bigfoot sightings have happened, their body was finally recovered. This body's been missing for 6 months, and it was just now recovered.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So this is the level of devastation.
Maybe the question needs to be asked in a different way.
Yeah.
Have you seen any weird bear remains?
So, the people that I have worked with since, unfortunately, Helene, there have been some interesting stories. Nothing necessarily along those lines, but there have been some interesting stories. What would you write down on a form? I know, right?
Somebody's going to say, just write down bear, man.
Yeah, just write down bear, But what makes me mad and why this is a rant is because, I just told you guys about 2 humans who their remains have been missing for 6 months.
Yeah.
And we've just now recovered them. One of them was East Tennessee, and allegedly he was found very far away. This Avery County person, their remains were found very far away, but positively identified with the other wreckage from the particular RV park that they were at.
Yeah. So
it's a pretty clear identification. And, we're all processing this. It's only been 6 months since Helene. But, and there's people who are saying there's still hundreds missing. I'm not here to argue that. what I am here to argue is people who are using devastation as a way to talk about or encourage clicks for Bigfoot. Because of all the conversation about Bigfoot, I actually went into Google Trends, which is a way you can find out how many times people search and look for stuff. And apparently there's been several instances through the month of October and November and all the way into now where there are stories of people who are claiming that Bigfoot was rescued by first responders. Or a Bigfoot stayed in my house during Hurricane Helene. And you get down to it, and I want to say shame on you because of everything else that has happened. And the only reason I say that is the evidence you're providing is anecdotal, and it's a story. If Bigfoot stayed in your home during Helene, where's the photos?
Yeah.
Footage of Bigfoot being lifted. There were a lot of airlift rescues. There were so many airlift rescues that some of my friends cannot even tell you how many people they saved that day. That's how many airlift rescues. And sometimes you'd go to an area and you'd airlift people, and you'd be, people were so upset, so concerned, stuff like that, that people would latch on to other people. So you'd be doing an airlift rescue where you're only supposed to be saving one person who weighs 100 pounds and another person who weighs 180 pounds. And as they're being lifted up, another person who's 100 pounds grabs onto their feet.
Yeah.
And now you've got what looks like an 8-foot, 10-foot tall being picked up by 2 helicopters. That's not Bigfoot. That's people in fear of their lives being rescued. And I'm just upset about that. So, yes, I still want to believe that Bigfoot is somewhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains, maybe in the Great Smoky Mountains. I'm leaning towards Great Smoky Mountains. But the evidence and using words like Hurricane Helene and statements like that, it's rubbing me the wrong way.
Yes.
So if you do have a Hurricane Helene cryptid story or paranormal story, which I have been getting, cool. Share it with us. We give you a phone number. You can find us on social media. I do want to hear those paranormal ones because I've had some strange experiences, and so have some of my friends who have been first responders in this devastation. Just found out Hopkinsville, they just had, in Kentucky, they've just had another 100-year flood, which makes me feel bad. They're going to go through.
I watched some of the footage of that flood. It's like, wow, we were standing right there. You were in there buying a Starbucks. I'm just like, oh, wow, I totally know where that is.
Yeah, and so they're going to be going through their own devastation and their own trauma and stuff like that. I don't think it is appropriate to immediately go towards the cryptid thing.
Lake Shawnee flooded.
Yeah, Lake Shawnee flooded as well.
And he was like, oh, it's just a little flood. It's like, no, man, that was a good-sized flood.
Yeah, and
not like what we had, but it was still enough.
Here's the thing. Some of these podcasts and some of these YouTube videos and some of these social media channels, it was like instantaneous, which kind of threw me off. It was like, like some of these are like October 3rd, October 7th.
Yeah.
You know, whereas normally when you get Bigfoot stories, it's like, you know, it's like a site we love, Phantoms and Monsters. And he's like, here's a story here's a story from somebody from 2012. You know, why is this different now? You know, normally
I think love's a strong word for that.
Okay. But you know what I'm trying to say. It's like typically when you get a cryptid story, it's like somebody who's really thought out whether or not they want to share
1993.
Yeah. Whether or not they want to share their experience or not. It's not like 3 days after one of the biggest devastations of Western North Carolina. And that's,
I mean, the place is geographically changed forever.
Yeah. And now, you know, like I was going to go with, you know, Hopkinsville. They've had their Hopkinsville's weird. We know that it's weird. We celebrate it being weird. Let's now first focus on the people, make sure everything's okay. And then maybe we can talk about the weird when we're all ready.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just what I want to say. Let's talk about the weird when we're all ready.
All right. So we had a couple more stories to talk about, but I don't think we're going to.
Okay.
We are going to talk about the British banana phantom. So we're going to kind of wrap it up with that. Because I was going to talk about the idea that an engineer disclaims the discovery of a new force. And to put that in a nutshell, it's the ability to use electricity for propulsion.
Okay.
That changes everything, because that would be like when you see, like on all these sci-fi shows where this craft takes off somehow, and you're like, how is it doing that? And it's using, the electricity, not necessarily magnetism, but this like static electricity that gets created and stuff like that as a means of propulsion. Which is a nice way of saying kind of like electrically based plasma type energy, which that would change things quite a bit. So I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And then the other thing is that according to the Daily Mail Online, there will be some documents released that Hitler had a secret escape after World War II, right? Coming from the CIA. So allegedly these are CIA documents that are being released saying that Hitler had a secret escape during World War II. Oh, and that's been a theory, is that it wasn't him that died with Eva Braun in the bunker, that he left.
Yeah.
But there's also the theory is that Hitler also had lots of dupes.
Yeah.
So was it really Hitler that left? Did they find a dupe? Last I heard, Russia allegedly recovered the remains of Adolf Hitler and lost it.
Yeah.
Or lost the remains. So I don't know. So to me, this is almost like Amelia Earhart. And you hear something, you're like, what?
Yeah.
So
on top of that, I'm looking at these documents that are uncovered allegedly on this Daily Mail thing. And we have gotten better at taking pictures of old things. These look like photocopies of photocopies 5,000 times.
Well, that may be what it is. Maybe
I know,
somebody
but
was being super secretive.
Figure the original.
And didn't have time because they weren't supposed to be stealing that. When you take a picture of a top secret document, you might as well have stolen the top secret document. That's how it works.
Where's the original?
Probably locked up in a CIA vault.
Okay. But
as microfiche or something. So you can't really go too far into it actually talking about the article in great and agonizing detail. But let's go ahead and wrap up the podcast with this.
Yeah.
Do you know what aports and abortation is?
No.
Well, the term aportation refers to the alleged phenomenon where objects appear, disappear, or move to a new location without any visible external influence.
Oh.
So, an object that is said to have appeared or been transported in this manner is called aport. Mm-hmm. Right? But how that actually happens, who knows? Because the article wants to talk about briefs, misconceptions, paranormal theories, logical contradictions. But the term is actually derived from the French word meaning apporter, which means to bring. And it's also used to describe instances where objects spontaneously materialize or vanish, often in a way that defies conventional explanations.
Okay.
So like a ghost hunter may report that a small object like a stone, a coin, or a piece of jewelry or something suddenly appeared in the room or dropped from the ceiling. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or dropped just out of nowhere. Stories, like little rocks dropping on you and stuff when there's no rocks around, just strange things like that. And so it's not that common. So, I mean, these objects can inexplicably vanish or dematerialize or appearalize. But in the context of ghost hunting, and paranormal investigations, apports are reported when objects seemingly disappear without any logical explanation. So you have apport and you also have asport. Asport's when it goes away. Apport's when it shows up, kind of. Now, they do talk about one of the most famous cases of apports occurred in the 1970s when British healer and medium Matthew Manning gained some attention for the various paranormal phenomena, including apports. So reports claimed that ancient scripts and objects would appear in his presence during seances. But, you can't prove it. The validity always comes into question, and skeptics are quick to point out flaws about the whole idea of apportation.
Yeah.
So because there's always a lack of tangible proof or the reliability of the witness. Because somebody can say, man, I've seen it drop out of the ceiling. And they say, well, let me examine you to see if you're just a weirdo whack job, right? So part of the reason why I put this in here is because when we went and talked to the paranormal rangers in a conference that happened in New Mexico, they told this story about coins that were falling out of the ceiling and just magically appearing, right? And this was in a place that they were investigating. I can't remember if it was Stanley. I think it was Stanley. But anyway, when he got home, it continued. like the coins falling out of the ceiling and stuff. And he had a witness to it, somebody who wasn't a witness to it from before. So during the investigation, and these are legit Navajo Rangers, these are federal employees. So it was witnessed by them during the investigation, him at home with a third-party witness, and he had the coins. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah. Didn't you try to touch once?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he basically, in my own funny way, it's like I couldn't help it because they were like, just do not touch anything on this table, because they were serious about it. They saged beforehand, sage after. They did, they're serious with it. They're like, do not touch anything. So I acted like I was going to touch. I just won't touch that, right? And dude was like, do not touch the thing. He got into me a little bit. He broke out that cop on me.
Yeah.
Which
worked.
I said, I got you, man. I just wanted to see how far you was. Yeah, man, it's very serious. I'm like, yeah, I'm just kind of goofing. He's like, oh, he thought it was funny. But it's kind of like when a cop says, hey, don't do that, and you start to act like you're going to do it anyway. So a cop can either go off the handle and take you to jail, or just know that you're messing around. A good cop who's been on the job for a while will know you're just kind of goofing with them. So, but yeah. Anyway, that's what I was trying to
remember Aportation. I was trying to remember like the most well-known cases of it. We know of the Paranormal Rangers, but I was trying to think of the first time I heard it was actually somebody else telling me a story of a house in Virginia. And then later on, Ed and Lorraine Warren had it happen, and I can't remember which haunting. I was trying to Google it and figure out, and I couldn't.
Ooh, you just spurred a memory. Do you remember the craziest, or one of the craziest? I don't know if it was around. We're a little bit of an age difference, but one of the craziest places that was allegedly haunted, scary, and all that stuff in Virginia Beach.
The Thorogood House?
No, that place is haunted. Oh. I've been there many times. Fun fact.
Yeah.
You go pay $4 to go to see the Thorogood House in the Thorogood neighborhood. But if you remember the Jamestown Society, you got in for free.
Yeah.
So it cost $4 to go in and take a tour. Yeah. Guess how much it cost to join the Jamestown Society?
How much?
$4. So me and my buddy Richie joined the Jamestown Society.
Yeah. Went
to a couple meetings and stuff, right? Just because we were going with it. We were sticking to it. Actually wound up learning a ton of stuff about Jamestown. Like with the, and the real stuff, not the stuff from school, but like, do you know the first documented cases of cannibalism in the New World? It's like,
do you know why Jamestown didn't have dogs?
Yeah, stuff like that. Do you know why they didn't find any leather when they were digging it? Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. And stuff like one guy was married to a large lady. Everybody got sick, right? They say that. Everybody was sick in the wintertime.
Yeah.
When they made the natives mad, the natives rolled out because the natives were like, you got to go. You're not ready for this stuff. And they couldn't find her because, they're like, where's your wife? Where's your wife? And he was eating on her.
God.
So they locked him up for like 30 days in the stockade. Mm-hmm. But the joke was they were all eating on each other.
Ugh.
So, but yeah.
So what was the memory that you unlocked?
Oh, yeah, Dollhouse.
Yeah. Dollhouse.
Yeah, there was a place in Virginia Beach. I don't know if it's still there. It might be off Laskin Road or something crazy like that. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're from the area, there was a house called the Dollhouse where evidently the legend went either a guy went crazy and killed his family or somebody killed his family around Christmas time, his wife and his kids, the whole family. The Christmas tree is still up in the living room, and there were dolls hanging from the ceiling.
What was it called?
The Dollhouse.
Where? Like
Virginia Beach.
Lynn Haven?
Maybe Laskin Road. I don't know. That's the whole thing. And I've seen it like multiple times. As you drove by and you could look in the window, the Christmas tree was still up. All the lights were off. And there were things hanging from the ceiling. Seen it with my own eyes several times. As far as I know, that house stayed vacant for a long time. I don't know if that's the way now. We're talking 30 years, but it was called the Dollhouse. And it was creepy. And allegedly, somebody still lived there. Like, dude's family died, and he was still there, or somebody was still there, like living in the house that way.
So my
Never
thing
took
was,
it down. It was just nicknamed the Dollhouse.
There was a creepy store. It was a creepy business.
Well, there's a lot of creepy
off
stores
Laskin, because I remember it because
there's a couple of them, but this is actually a residential house.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to go there now.
House is probably $500,000-$600,000 now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Where it's at? Yep. Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, that was a thing, and people would go riding by, whenever they wanted like a local scare.
Yeah. But my thing is like this whole aportation concept, which, funny enough, you just pretty much. I had heard of aportation at the Lynn Haven house in Virginia Beach. which we had a coworker who she used
Fun
to...
fact, just because you remember the Jamestown Society,
Yeah.
you can't get in the Lynn Haven house for
Yeah.
free.
But I believe that particular coworker actually experienced that at the Lynn Haven house. It was one of them. And then later on, heard about Ed and Lorraine Warren. Allegedly, there was a report of that at one of their investigations, Paranormal Rangers. But it seems like right about when some of the Ed and Lorraine Warren movies came out, nobody really talked about that Aportation. But for a while there, it used to be like a number one, oh, this place is super haunted. And now you rarely hear about it anymore.
Well, Ghost Adventures had instances where they were having like little rocks thrown at them or dropped on them and stuff, and they just thought something was flicking rocks at them.
But see, I'm so used to the coin and jewelry aspect of it and the toy aspect.
Well, you know why, right?
Why?
Because really, for something like this, it has to have like some sort of personal connection. There has to be some sort of tangibility applied. In other words, your essence or whatever.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, the idea that objects disappear and show up somewhere else, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think people put a finger to it, but you're like, we just did the investigation. I can't find that bracelet anywhere.
Yeah.
I always keep it here. And why is it not here?
Yeah.
Am I saying that's what happened? No, but I mean, there are instances like that where you're just like, I cannot find that. Where is that?
Yeah.
And either it resurfaces in a completely weird spot that you happened to find years ago or something else.
I mean, since it's in the podcast title, let's go ahead and say it. The British Banana Phantom calls it quits. Yeah. So I guess this came to light in January. It had begun sometime in...
Begunst.
I know, I cannot. I'm tired, y'all. It began in early 2023 when a plate of peeled bananas appeared on a street corner in the small town of Beston.
See, that's the weirdness.
Yeah.
It's peeled.
As the fruit kept appearing over the year, residents eventually realized that the offerings always mysteriously manifested on the second day of the month, sparking widespread speculation as to who was behind the series of events and what their purpose could have been. Okay. So, following worldwide headlines at the start of 2025, the Banana Phantom continued their handiwork under a considerably more watchful eye. No doubt with that in mind, the prankster outwitted pursuers in February by leaving the fruit a day early and, in March, putting the plate in a different part of town. With that banana-tinted backdrop, many wondered what the Phantom might have up their sleeve in April. Those expected some new elaborate twist to the game were assuredly disappointed on Tuesday morning when Beston residents reportedly woke up to a second of the month unlike any they had experienced over a year, as the now famed bananas were nowhere to be found. Okay. So I guess to some in the community, they feel that this joke has probably run its course. And other neighbors have pretty much said the same thing. I guess they got tired of doing whatever this prank is. Which, I mean, sure.
Yeah, but see, this is some small town trash, man.
It
People
is.
Like, hey, man, this is... And did you leave a plate of peeled bananas? Like, no. And then you're like, well, who would do such a thing? You know what I mean? That's just weird enough to where you're like, what? So, I mean, it doesn't really hurt anybody, I guess, but it's just such an odd thing. Who would leave a plate of peeled bananas?
But see, okay, imagine this.
If they weren't peeled, this would not be news. The fact that they're peeled and out in the open.
On a plate.
Just like you could just walk by and grab yourself a free range banana. Just walk around free eating like a serial killer.
Why didn't somebody, I mean, at some point the police had to have gotten involved and like maybe dusted for prints on the plate or something.
Yeah, probably, but it's a story.
I know.
Hey, did you get called out? Yeah, this Banana Phantom. It's just some weird stuff, right?
But again, like you said, this is like some weird small town stuff. But we live in a small town. This story would never make the headlines because if I left a plate of peeled bananas out in town, a possum or a raccoon are going to eat them in like 5 seconds.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure. It would never make the news because
so here's a question I have.
Gone before somebody found them.
If you're an animal and you grow up in a certain environment and you never have the opportunity to experience an orange, are you going to eat it?
No.
Probably not. So if you're a raccoon and you've never had a banana, this is England.
So even the raccoons don't have a wide palate?
They don't, I mean, okay, so England doesn't really have the same sort of flora and fauna that we do.
Okay.
It's pretty boring.
Yeah.
Like their food, bland.
Their badgers are polite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The little hedgehogs are nice.
Yeah.
Like, hey, or possums are nice too. Like, hey, what's going on? Yeah.
Our raccoons dig through like cars.
I don't even know if they have raccoons, and they probably do. I mean, I'm
better.
sure.
I mean,
But they've got like little monocles and teacups and stuff. I don't know. I say this out of love because I've spent time in England, so it's not like, I haven't had an opportunity. Like, I firsthand have tasted the food. Mm-hmm. Yes. So I can say with my own personal experience, bland. The most spicy thing I had when I was there at the time was malt vinegar and ketchup.
Oh, look at this.
I mean, sure, there's some other things, but...
Yes, there have been sightings of wild raccoons in the UK, primarily due to their adaptability and escapes from captivity. However, they are considered an invasive species.
See?
That's messed up.
It's pretty boring.
Yeah.
It's like, we have an invasive species of squirrels that have chewed through my cameras. So I can't see, like, I have a camera bird feeder. I'm like, I'd like to see the birds, right? No. It's like, oh, you didn't put the food out? I'm eating through your camera.
Yeah.
Well, joke's on them. We're on day 5. They get nothing from me.
And see, that's
nothing.
the thing. That camera's out there to capture weird stuff that might happen, right?
Yeah. Or weird people that might show up.
Yeah,
like
and leave
FedEx
plates
and
of...
UPS. Ooh, I forgot to tell you. There's an instance that I captured on film I've never seen before.
Okay.
FedEx and UPS in the driveway at the same time. They both showed up at exactly the same time. And then they both, because there's enough room, they can pull in and sort of back and turn around, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And they both pulled into the little parking spots. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, who's going to back out first? Mm-hmm. And so one guy went, started to go, and then the other guy started to go, and they went back and forth for a couple seconds. And I'm standing in the van, and I got my phone out. I'm like, ooh, recording right. And then the UPS guy decided, I'm going.
Yeah.
Because I'm more maneuverable.
Okay.
As he's going by, he's like, hey, give me a thumbs up. Hey, man. I'm like, you're winning the race, bro. And then he stopped and spent like 2 or 3 minutes just doing his thing. And he was doing that to the FedEx dude or the UPS guy. Just like, let me take my time, So I thought that was pretty funny. I don't know. I meant to show you, but I forgot.
So that is everything we mentioned in the podcast title.
Much.
So, yeah.
We're going to end it for you guys. Now we're just going to talk about it in great and agonizing detail.
Anyways.
So it's a bonus. Anyway, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about this particular episode of the podcast or any episodes that we talk about in the podcast, we've got about 334 of them, don't be afraid to let us know.
Yep. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social. Okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
All right. So anyway, there you go. See you later. Take it easy. Bye, Sickle.
Bye.